So you're thinking about moving to Seattle, but most people who end up moving to Seattle don't actually end up in Seattle. They end up on Seattle's east side. In this video, I'm going to explain all of what that's about. Now, Seattle's east side is not what you think about it. And actually, it's not even called Seattle's east side. We call it the east side. And it's a whole bunch of cities that make up the east side. It includes Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, Issaquah, Bothell, Sammamish, Mercer Island, Newcastle, Kenmore, and I know I can go on and on and on. And this video is not a Seattle bashing video because people who love Seattle, who move here to be in Seattle, absolutely love it. This video is about people who think they're going to move to Seattle and end up somewhere else. We're going to talk about the schools, the lifestyle, the prices of the homes, the things to do, and what's unique about each of these cities because they're almost totally different. Each of these cities, and we'll talk about this, actually has like a personality of their own. Like Redmond's kind of its own personality, Bellevue's a different personality. And if you have that personality, what's going to draw you to each of these cities is totally different. So stay tuned. We're going to go through all the cities. So you, when you're moving here and you say you're going to move to Seattle, because at one point when I was a little kid, I said I was going to move to Seattle and we ended up in Kirkland, Washington. So we're going to talk through that today and we're going to explain everything. So as I said, we moved to the Seattle area when I was a kid, but it was actually Redmond, Washington and Kirkland, Washington. I've lived in both of these places. But why should you even listen to me? I've lived here since 1984. I'm 49 years old, and Seattle's east side, or the east side, is actually my backyard. I've owned 5 homes in Kirkland, and we still live there now. Let me explain to you why this video actually matters. It's about your family, it's about the homes you buy, it's about really knowing the Seattle area. Personally, I've driven all the back roads. I know the east side, I've lived the east side, I played sports at these schools, I've worked on the east side, and to really understand, for example, like if you live on the east side or live in Seattle, what is it like to cross over the bridge and how long does it take to get to work? Is it worth it? If I love the east side, should I live on the east side if I work in Seattle? So we're gonna go through all these questions today. But first, let's explain what the east side actually is. So when I grew up here, we're going in the 80s and early 90s, if you wanted to do anything, you went to Seattle. You crossed the bridge, you went to Seattle. You wanted a nice restaurant, you went to Seattle. You wanted something fun to do, you went to Seattle. Now that has totally changed. So the east side has everything you're looking for and more. So let's go through, in general, the cities that we're going to be talking about today. It starts central in Bellevue. Yes, this is where Bill Gates live. It's very polished, it's beautiful, it's walkable in parts. Then we're going to talk about Kirkland. Kirkland's kind of got this beachy vibe, probably a little bit more practical than Bellevue, but still very expensive. Then you've got Redmond, which is technical institution where Microsoft is. And when I think about Redmond, I think about the tech worker. Then you've got Bothell. Bothell is probably more sensible. It's a little bit north of Kirkland. You've got Mercer Island, which sits right between Seattle and Bellevue. You've got Kenmore, which is a little bit on the outskirts. You've got Issaquah, which is up towards the mountains. Sammamish, which is even farther towards the mountains. So we're gonna go through all these cities, and if you've never heard of them, I'm gonna walk through them one by one so you really understand what these cities are and what they have to offer. So now I want to talk about why people choose the east side instead of Seattle. And again, I know I said this before, this is not a Seattle bashing video, but let's go through these 5 now. The first reason is jobs, and that's a major, I could say it over and over again, huge reason. So a lot of people want to be on the east side specifically because Microsoft's here, Amazon has a presence here, Meta, Google, all these major companies have a presence on the east side. So if people want to be on the east side, so let me go back. Historically, if you wanted those type of jobs, they were in Seattle. So you wanted to be on the east side for certain reasons, but you had to face the traffic, going over these bridges back and forth every single day. But the jobs on the east side, so now instead of having to go over to Seattle, because all of these, I don't want to say satellite, because they're major offices on the east side. So Microsoft's in Redmond, Bellevue has got a little bit of everything. So you can now work on the east side, live on the east side, and reduce the time that you spend in your car for traffic dramatically. The second reason is schools, and this is another huge one. So I've got friends who have lived in Seattle their entire life, and they have said to me, I will never live on this east side. There's nothing you could do. I would never live on the east side. And Eric, I'm talking to you. You lived on Seattle and now you live in Kirkland, so you're a liar. But the east side schools are fantastic. So in Seattle, there are pockets of schools that are very good. And if you're in one of those pockets, you know what I'm talking about in Northeast Seattle and different pockets throughout there. But in general, when people start a different stage in their life and they've got kids and you're out of the preschool phase and you're in elementary, middle, and high school, they start thinking about the East Side. Because in Seattle, when you get to that stage, the first thought people have is, do I need to go to private school? Do I have another expense that I have to think about? But on the East Side, you don't have that fear. It doesn't matter if you're in Bellevue, which is the top rated school district in the state, or if you're in Kirkland, where Lake Washington School District is, or Bothell, where North Shore is. In general, you may not have that extra expense like you would in Seattle when you're paying for private schools, as you would on the East Side, because you can go to public schools. So now let's talk about the third reason. It's safety and that kind of neighborhood feel. The East Side is very safe, I guess, in general. When I look at the police officers, and no offense to any police officers out there, in general, they're giving out speeding tickets and parking tickets and that type of thing. And Sammamish itself, if you Google it, is like the safest city every single year in the whole state, and it's right on Seattle's East Side, or on the East Side. So in general, it's very safe. You don't really have a lot to worry about. And again, like my videographer, Colby, who's right behind this camera here, him and I witnessed the biggest crime in the East Side last week when we were filming in Redmond. It was somebody who stole his coffee. And he did leave it outside and it was 100 yards away from him, but that's the truth. But again, there's not really any crime. But like the lifestyle itself, so you're looking for being comfortable. You're not worrying about like the homelessness that you read about in Seattle. You're not worried about the school districts. You're not worried about crime. You want sidewalks and safety and just kind of the ease of life, but there is a trade-off to it. And the trade-off is the East Side is expensive. And the fourth reason, it's kind of a carry-on from number 3. I just want to dig deeper into the lifestyle. The East Side has almost everything. It's got golf courses and parks and access to skiing. And if you're in Sammamish or Issaquah, it's got access to the mountains and hiking. It's got all those things and water sports. You could be on Lake Washington and water skiing, or Lake Sammamish and inner tubing. So the lifestyle, and again, you're talking to basically a lifetime East Sider, is really awesome and really comfortable for the entire family. And the fifth reason, and this one's complicated because the housing on the East Side is expensive. And I mean really expensive. Not like Bill Gates' house, because yes, he does live on the East Side. But in general, if you're moving from anywhere, let's say, so my wife moved here from the Midwest, and you think, what does $1 million buy me on the East Side? And in certain areas, it's gonna buy you a townhouse or a small condo. In other areas, it's gonna buy you a single family home with a backyard. But so knowing how complicated the housing market is on the East Side and knowing what areas you want to look at are extremely important. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake people make before moving to Seattle. They look at a map, put the map out in front of you, and you see, gosh, it's only 5 miles to get from my house to work, right? It could be 5 miles from Kirkland to Bellevue, or 5 miles from Bellevue to Seattle. But that doesn't work in Seattle. It doesn't work on the East Side. It doesn't work anywhere around here because 1, there's traffic everywhere, and 2, there's construction everywhere. So you really need to kind of time it out. So it's not about the distance in miles. It's actually about time of commute. So if you're using apps, you know, you can use Apple Maps or Google Maps or Waze. Before you even come out here, I would time that out. I would see how long does it take to drive from Redmond to Microsoft, or Redmond to Seattle, or Redmond to where you're trying to go, or Kirkland to where you're trying to go. So you can really try to understand how many minutes is it gonna take you, because I'm looking at my life now and it might be similar. You've got my daughter in cheer or my son in football, and I've got work at 8 o'clock, and you think you can get from point A to point B quickly, but you didn't time it out, you just looked at the miles. So it's so important to really understand, because I have taken these highways every single day of my life. I have taken Highway 520, 405, I-90, I-5, and it's all congested. So understanding, like, again, if you live on the East Side, here's a huge benefit. The benefit is you can avoid these major highways. You can go take these back streets. You can use your map app to avoid long commutes. But it's so important to understand where you live compared to where you work and all the things that you do. First, let's talk about Bellevue. So if Seattle's that historic, cultural city, Bellevue's that like cool, hip, polished guy, right, or girl. Bellevue has a little bit of everything, but it's really expensive. But don't get me wrong, we're at an office right here in Bellevue on the outskirts, so it's a little bit less expensive. But Bellevue has almost everything you need. A lot of people choose Bellevue because you can live in the downtown area and you have everything you need. You can walk to work, You can walk to the park, you can take the elevator down and walk your dog. This part of Bellevue, the downtown Bellevue scene, has everything. It's got steakhouses, it's got great parks, it's got beautiful movie theaters like with bars in them. It's got almost everything you could ever think of. It's got a waterfront lifestyle. And then there are pockets of Bellevue that are crazy expensive, where like I was at a golf course in Bellevue with a friend of mine, and Macklemore the rapper was there playing, because he's a member of that golf course, and Bill Gates is a member of that golf course. And granted, these are the highest echelon of people, so if you've got that kind of money, Bellevue might be perfect for you. But on the flip side, you can go all the way further east, and there are parts of Bellevue that are not walkable, that you can get into for about $1 million. But in general, people move to Bellevue because the schools are awesome, the commute is great, but they pay the price for being there. And if that's you, Bellevue is perfect for a lot of people. But just understand the pros and cons of Bellevue. Now let's talk about Kirkland. And this one obviously is closest to my heart because I've lived in Kirkland almost my entire life. Like all of my firsts happened in Kirkland. First car, first house, first kiss, all that stuff. But here's why. Actually, my family, we grew up in Redmond, and I've lived in Kirkland since I bought my first house. But Kirkland's got that, like, there's part of it that's beachy, so it's got that waterfront lifestyle where like literally you take your kids and you just go skip rocks and play in the water. And then you've got the flip side where it's a little bit more suburban, and you got everything in between. But Kirkland, like in general, is so safe, it's so comfortable, it's a little bit more affordable than Bellevue. And again, Bill Gates did not choose to live in Kirkland. But Costco, obviously Costco, that Kirkland signature brand, chose to put their first office in Kirkland. That's why it's called Kirkland Signature. But Kirkland's got great parks, and depending on where you want to live, the house pricing can go anywhere. You could be on the waterfront in Kirkland for $10 million, or you could be in a condo in parts of Kirkland for $290,000. So it has a little bit of everything for everybody. And again, if you work somewhere in Kirkland or at Microsoft or at Amazon, Kirkland is so central. There's one neighborhood, this is actually my neighborhood, one neighborhood in Kirkland called Rose Hill. There was an article written 5 years ago that this was the best location on the whole East Side because of its proximity to all the tech companies. Because you've got Meta or Facebook and Google in Kirkland and Microsoft in Redmond, and Amazon is really everywhere. But those type of neighborhoods exist in Kirkland. And again, if you're moving, and I don't want to sound like a Kirkland lover, but I actually am, I would absolutely explore Kirkland. So now let's talk about Redmond number 3. So if Bellevue's the polished one, Kirkland's kind of that lakefront beachy vibe, Redmond's about tech. And tech is awesome. And if you want to be in the Redmond area and you work at a tech company, that's a perfect match. Of course, the biggest thing in Redmond is Microsoft. And I grew up literally about 200 yards from Microsoft's main campus before it was there. And it is incredible. So if you live in Redmond and you work in tech, you could be at Microsoft, you could be at Nintendo of America's in Redmond, you can be at Meta, or Facebook's got an office in Redmond. And so you can get to all these companies without ever jumping on the freeway. And then they've got outdoor malls. There's probably only a couple outdoor malls in all of Washington State. One of them is called Redmond Town Center, obviously in Redmond. The other mall is called Overlake, and they're growing that area like crazy. But one thing to know, and because Redmond's so central and there's so many tech workers, they are building a massive hub for our new light rail system. So if you're from the East Coast and you've taken like the underground system, not buses, but like the train system, Seattle has been planning on building this light rail system for as long as I've been here, and it's finally happening. So if you actually live in Redmond but work in Seattle, you actually have the light rail to take you all the way across the lake now. So that is a huge opportunity, but more importantly, I think what people do if they live in Redmond is they work on the East Side, and they probably work in Redmond too. Now fourth, let's talk about Bothell. And Bothell's really interesting. So growing up in Redmond and then living in Kirkland, honestly, I didn't even give Bothell a lot of thought. But things have changed a lot over the last 10 or 15 years. So I have clients come to me every single week and they say, hey, I definitely want to be in Redmond, Kirkland, Bellevue, but my budget's 1.1 million and I want a larger house. What actually happens is that people start looking in Redmond or Kirkland or Bellevue and they realize they can get so much more house in Bothell. And Bothell is changing. They grew this whole downtown area with restaurants, and there's parks and things to do and an outdoor lifestyle, and you're not too far from golf courses. So when I think about Bothell, it almost feels more sensible, right? So if you have a bigger budget and you want to reduce your commute and you feel polished, you're in Bellevue. Or if you want to be closer to the water, you're in Kirkland. But Bothell ends up being that place where you know, you've got a different kind of budget or you want to spend your money elsewhere and you want to be still in a good school district and near good restaurants and closer to the freeway and highway, which you probably will take if you're in tech and you live in Bothell. But Bothell is actually an interesting hub for the biotech industry. I have a couple of friends who are in the biotech industry and they have always had their office space in Bothell. If you're in the line of work of biotech, I would actually, depending on what your budget is, highly consider Bothell because it's got everything that most of the other cities have, just at a different price point and a little bit longer commute. Next, let's talk about Woodinville. And Woodinville is completely different than anything else. I'm gonna start with an experience I'm having right now with one of my clients. One of my clients has always lived in Kirkland. They've owned the same home that we're selling in Kirkland next week. But they wanted to move to Bothell for one reason. They wanted, one, to be closer to family, and two, to walk to all the wineries. So Woodinville is known for its wineries. And again, it's not Napa. I've never even been to Napa. But it has over 200 wineries right in the Woodinville downtown area. And that place is changing like crazy. So my clients, they moved from a beautiful single family home in Kirkland to a townhouse because they're retired in Woodinville, walkable to the wineries. And they obviously love wine, but they wanted that like, hey, lock it up, forget about it. I can just leave my home whenever I want, I'm retired. And there are new construction homes in Woodinville that can do this for you. But the biggest reason people move to Woodinville is for space. So if you move, and you don't get that typically in Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, Bothell, or almost any other east side. But in Woodinville, you got acreage. I can close my eyes and think about some of my friends that lived in Woodinville growing up, and it's almost like you could raise horses in their backyard. And there are places, there are equestrian properties in Woodinville that are amazing. But in general, you get huge yards, rotting lawnmowers, you have a great school district, wineries everywhere, and really it's just kind of a different rhythm. I wouldn't say it's sleepy, it's just more spread out. You're not right on top of your neighbors. Like I think even right now in Kirkland, if I look out my bedroom window, I see a house. If I look out my bathroom window, I see another house. In Woodinville, you just don't get that, and that's a huge benefit of living in Woodinville. So next, let's talk about Issaquah, and this comes up all the time with relocation clients. It's that place where close to the mountains, the trails, it's family friendly, there's plenty of things to do, the schools are great, very similar to other Eastside neighborhoods and homes, but for some people it can feel a little bit further out. And here's what I mean by that. It's closer to the mountains, so if you like to go skiing, it's fantastic, and hiking in the mountains, it's fantastic, but you're closer to the mountains, which is further from the city. But if you work in Bellevue and you live in Issaquah, getting to Bellevue is super easy. Getting to Seattle, a little bit more challenging. And getting to Kirkland, a little bit more challenging. But it offers so much more. And I want to go back to this outdoor lifestyle because a lot of people move to Seattle specifically for that. So I had some clients move here from Chicago. And when they first moved here, they looked at a map and they're like, Seattle. So they moved to West Seattle. And as soon as they could afford moving from their first home that they bought, they wanted to move to Issaquah. And why? Because they were outdoorsy. They take their kids hiking every single weekend or camping or skiing. And that is the absolute perfect person to buy a home or live in Issaquah. They didn't have to commute to Seattle every single day. They actually work from home. And actually come to think of it as I'm just talking, if you actually work from home and you love the outdoors, this might be the perfect area for you. I can't specifically tell you if there's more or less tech workers there, but in general, the houses there are a little bit less expensive than other pockets of the east side. And then if you get on the outskirts of Issaquah, it actually, without the wineries, you can actually get acreage. And so if you are working in Bellevue and you want that acreage, buying in Issaquah or living in Issaquah, you're not buying just a house. You're buying the lifestyle. You're buying the Saturday morning hike, the Sunday morning soccer game. You're buying those things that money can't buy, and that's pretty awesome. Now let's talk about Sammamish, probably the most family-oriented suburb on the east side. And why do people choose this? It's super easy. It's safety, schools, community, kids, safety. And I'm going to say safety over and over again because it's a little bit further out, and we'll get into that in a second. But people love Sammamish because it's got beautiful homes. You can buy bigger homes for less money. You can have views of Lake Sammamish, or you could be closer to the mountains if you love hiking or the outdoors or skiing. You're just closer to nature. So I have so many friends that live up in Sammamish, and it's like, my brother actually moved it. The first house he ever bought was in Sammamish, and he moved out there because of the safety, and he could walk to the supermarket. Not everywhere can you do that. but there's multiple golf courses out there. So if you're a golf fanatic like I am, there's private golf courses that you can go that are all over Sammamish. But there's a big trade-off because it's a little bit further out. And it actually reminds me, one of my first clients many years ago, gosh, I'm old, many years ago was living in Sammamish with their family. And they called me up and they said, hey, we need to reduce our commute. And all they did was work in Bellevue. They wanted to reduce their commute by 20 minutes and they had to move from Sammamish to Issaquah. And again, if you watch this whole video, I already told you that Issaquah is not that close to anything, but parts of Sammamish can be very tricky. So if you live deep in kind of like the north end of Sammamish and you work even in Issaquah, once you're in Sammamish, you are really up in Sammamish. And there's really only a couple ways in and out of Sammamish. And so just know that if you live in Sammamish, you're gonna get all the things that people love with the school and the community and the safety. It's awesome, but you're gonna have a bit of a drive. And after a long period of time, and if you work in Seattle or if you work in Kirkland or one of these other tech companies, you might say, I do love Sammamish, but the trade-off for the commute is getting a little bit too long for me. So now I just want to get out of Sammamish and I want to move to Redmond or Kirkland or Bellevue or Issaquah because commutes really matter. Some people don't mind. You know, I've got clients who, like, when they get out of work, they want that half hour, 40 minutes just in their car by themselves to unwind. But I have somebody like me, if I'm in the car for more than 15 minutes commuting, I start pulling my hair out. But if you don't mind the commute and you want all the awesome things that Sammamish has to offer, you got to check it out. So these two roads can be treacherous, and I mean it. I've been stuck in traffic on both sides. So on the north side towards Redmond, you've got Redmond Fall City Road, and that can be tight. I'm not gonna lie. If you live up in Sammamish and you drive into Redmond or you're trying to get to Highway 520, Redmond Fall City Road can be a real pain in the butt. But again, if you love driving, if you're the type of person who just loves to enjoy your commute, it may not be that bad. But just know, if you live on that north side, that road could be treacherous. So now if you're on the south side of Sammamish and you're just trying to get into Issaquah Pine Lake Road is kind of similar to what I was just explaining. So getting down to the freeway or I-90 is what the whole goal is. And that road also can get quite a bit backed up. I remember when my brother lived up there and he said one of the challenges, and this is going back 15 years ago, was that when it got icy, and it doesn't snow a ton here, don't get me wrong, but when it got icy, that road, that Issaquah Pine Lake Road, almost is impossible to get up and down. So just be aware, and that might be a good thing. Maybe you get snowed in. Now let's talk about Mercer Island, and Mercer Island is unique. People don't move there because it's the cheapest place around, but it's really awesome. My brother and my sister-in-law both live on Mercer Island, and they love it. Again, it's safe, and its location is almost perfect if you live in Seattle. Perfect meaning, obviously Mercer Island is an island right between Seattle and Bellevue. And if you're on the north part of the island, right off the highway, you have access to everything. And it's a short commute. Like even if you live in Bellevue or Kirkland, you don't get access to Seattle like you do if you live on Mercer Island. One of the things that people love about Mercer Island, even if you have that Bellevue budget, is it's quieter. There are parts of Mercer Island that you get water views. There are parts of Mercer Island that are just so quiet, so reserved. It's so zen. But obviously it comes with a price and it's not cheap to live there, but it's pretty awesome. So I had some clients in town just this past weekend and they wanted to be on Mercer Island. We looked all over, but their budget was 1.4 million, and that's a really good budget. Like we looked all over Mercer Island and the homes that were around that price were old, the roofs were falling apart, it just wasn't even livable. So they decided to look in other parts and we ended up buying actually a small house in Kirkland. But Mercer Island offers so much. And if you grew up on Mercer Island, like they call it the Rock. And I think about my sister-in-law who grew up on Mercer Island. Then they moved to Sammamish, but the minute she could afford to move back to Mercer Island, because it's expensive, she moved back to Mercer Island. Again, it's beautiful, it's central, and you are taking a lot of times, like I think there's 3 main roads on Mercer Island. And again, there's neighborhoods, but you've got Island Crest Way, which goes right up the center of Mercer Island. Then you've got East Mercer Way, which is on the east side of Mercer Island, and the West Mercer Way, which is on the west side of Mercer Island. And you have water views both ways. But if you've got the budget, and this is a serious budget, they called Mercer Island's Gold Coast on that west side. I had a friend of mine, and this guy invented Pictionary. He lived on the west side of Mercer Island with a lake view. If you've got the budget and you want the views and you want that awesome school district, and it really does feel like a world of its own, Mercer Island should be on your bucket list. Now let's do a couple rapid fire honorable mentions. Let's talk about Newcastle and Kenmore. Newcastle is right outside of Bellevue. It's got one of the best golf courses in the whole state of Washington with views everywhere. I love that place, Newcastle Golf Course. But it's a little bit on the outskirts. It's still on the east side. Newcastle can be very polarizing because part of Newcastle feeds into the Bellevue School District, part of it feeds into the Renton School District, and that can be still fine, but the part that feeds into the Bellevue School District is that much more expensive. But Newcastle's fantastic. Now let's talk about Kenmore. Kenmore has a really soft place in my heart because when I had my midlife crisis and I wanted to work at a golf course, I went to work in Kenmore. And Kenmore has a different rap. Like, most people don't even think about Kenmore. They're thinking about Bellevue or Bothell or Woodinville or any of the other towns and cities we talked about. But Kenmore's got a great education. Like, Inglemoor High School is fantastic. But some of the problem is the commute just to get anywhere is a little bit tricky. So like, if you live in Kenmore, you could actually go around the lake and not over the lake and work in Seattle. If you live in Kenmore, you could also work in Bothell. Kenmore is also probably one of those more sensible places. The prices are a lot more reasonable. Even if you live on the water in Kenmore, you're probably paying $3 million versus Kirkland at $7 or $8 million. Kenmore's smart. Okay, so I know I've gone through a whole bunch of towns and cities, and this might be going so fast, but let's just do a little recap. Okay, Bellevue, super polished, great schools, and if you work in Bellevue, you can live in Bellevue, it's easy. Kirkland is Rose Hill, that neighborhood, the most central to all tech companies in the area, but it's got that beachy vibe. Redmond is Microsoftville and full of tech workers. Bothell is smart and a little bit more affordable. Issaquah is a little bit on the outskirts, so if you like hiking and skiing, a little bit more of a commute. Sammamish, even more of a commute, but you get more house for your money because it's further out in the golf communities. And then you've got Mercer Island, and Mercer Island is central to everything, but it's not cheap at all. And then you've got kind of my rapid fire where you got Newcastle, which is polarizing because of the school districts, but close to the freeways, and Kenmore, which is super sensible. So if you made it this far, you're probably serious about moving to the east side. And I know you have a lot of questions. My wife Molly and I have sold over 100 homes in the last couple years on the east side, and our contact information is below. Just reach out to us anytime. Now let's talk about schools, because this is the biggest reason people move to the east side. And don't just pick a house, don't just pick a school district. Make sure you understand what exactly you're looking for. And what I mean by that is the boundaries matter, and the boundaries actually change. When I was a kid, I lived in Redmond, and the boundaries changed, so I went to a school in Kirkland, and then they changed again, and my younger brother went to school in Redmond. And even recently in Kirkland, the boundaries changed, so my daughter went to a different middle school than she expected. So make sure you understand what school district you actually want to be in. I'm going to start with the school districts in a second, but again, check those boundaries out. They are very, very important. So the first thing that people mostly look at is, when they're moving to the east side, can I be in the Bellevue School District? So the Bellevue District goes from, like, I'm gonna say Bill Gates, hey Bill Gates' house in Medina, Washington, all the way to Crossroads and everything in between. The Bellevue School District is fantastic. And I'm not gonna go through every school in all the school districts, because what people want is very individual. Some people want the best scholastic experience. Some people care about the sports. Some people care about the walkability. People care about very different things. And again, like, just reach out to me if you're curious about the boundaries or the school district specifically. But Bellevue is that place where I think most people wanna be. Like, I think even when my parents moved here, they're like, well, we can't afford Bellevue, so we're gonna look in Kirkland or Redmond. So Bellevue is probably the peak of everything. So Bellevue High School, Interlake High School, Newport High School are like the top of the top. People move to Bellevue a lot because of the school districts. Then you've got Mercer Island, and obviously that's just the Mercer Island School District. But as I can say is my nephews go there. We have plenty of clients that have moved there. And if you're not in Bellevue, people want to be on Mercer Island because the Mercer Island School District is really, really good. And I grew up in the Lake Washington School District. So the Lake Washington School District is Redmond, mostly Redmond, and Kirkland. And it's awesome. You know, they're parts of the Lake Washington School District, and if I'm looking at Kirkland specifically, that will feed into the Juanita area, or Juanita High School, and then there's other parts that will feed into Lake Washington, or the Lake Washington High School, and Lake Washington High School is in the Lake Washington School District. So understanding that, don't just look at the name, because Mercer Island has its school district and Bellevue does, but Lake Washington's a little bit different. Then you've got the Issaquah School District. Again, you're a little bit further out, but the Issaquah School District basically feeds in parts of Sammamish and parts of Issaquah. And then you've got North Shore. So the North Shore School District is a little bit further north, North Shore. So that feeds into like Woodinville and Bothell. And again, so we're just talking about these few school districts. People move to the east side because all of these districts are awesome. All of these school districts have pros and cons, but if you want the best of the best, you're gonna look at Bellevue, then Mercer Island. But when clients are moving or relocating into Washington or moving from Seattle to the east side, they are doing it for the school districts, and that's a huge reason. Now let's talk about housing expectations, because this is where relocation clients can seriously get hit in the face a little bit because it's expensive. So I'm gonna start at the most expensive, and then we're gonna work our way down a little bit. But again, they're all expensive. Bellevue, Bill Gates land, Medina, Clyde Hill, that area starts at about $1.5 million somewhere in Bellevue on up to $80 million, right? But in general, $1.5 million up to probably, I'd say, 5 or 6 million. Then you've got Kirkland. You probably start in condos in the 300s or 400s up to houses that are probably averaging the normal house 3 to 3.5 million. Then you've got Redmond. You're starting with smaller homes or townhomes around $1 million up to probably 2.5 million. Then you've got Sammamish and Issaquah. You're probably starting at $1.5 million up to 3 million. And then Kenmore on the outskirts. You can probably get into Kenmore for 800 or 900,000 up to about $1.5 million. I know there is a lot of information, and pricing can vary dramatically by the age of the house, the size of the house, the location, if you've got highway noise, if you've got a big yard. But just know that Bellevue's the most expensive, and then you've got Kenmore kind of towards the bottom end of that spectrum. So now let's talk about the downsides of the east side. And I just hit number 1. The east side is expensive, period. Number 2, it's the traffic. And no matter where you live on the east side or even Seattle, you're gonna hit traffic on the side roads, the construction, on the highways. Just know it, traffic sucks. Third, some people feel like it's a little bit polished or too quiet compared to Seattle, meaning like Seattle's got action, the east side is a little bit sleepy. And number 4, it's competitive when you're buying a house. So no matter where you're at on the east side, it could be Kenmore, Bothell, Kirkland, Bellevue, if the house is presented well and it's priced well and it's in a good neighborhood, it's gonna be competitive and the price will get bid up. Number 5, and you read about this everywhere, it's the weather. It's not the hard downpour rain. It's the gray and the drizzle. And the rain and the gray and the drizzle is real. So number 6, the east side is spread out. And we talked about Sammamish and Issaquah over here and Kenmore's over here. So the east side creates problems for some and solves problems for others. It has so many things to offer, but again, to get to one city or town on the east side to another can be a long drive, and if you live on the east side, you know it. So the east side, it's not magic, but it's awesome. If you've got the funds to move to the east side, and you've got the family that wants to be on the east side, and you're relocating to the Seattle area, you should explore the east side. The communities, the schools, it might be quiet, there's traffic, but there's things to do, there's nature, the tech jobs are awesome. There are so many things to do on the east side, and I'm living proof. I have spent almost my entire life here. So if you have any questions about the east side or the Seattle area in general, call or text me anytime. I know this is a lot of information. Shoot me a note. I'm there for you. See you next time.